You know, my dears, life has a funny way of teaching us who people really are, not by what they say, but by how they treat you when they think you have nothing. When my son told me he was getting married, I was happy. Oh, my heart was full. He said, "Mama, she sits from a very respectable family. They have class, money, and all that." And I smiled, because I don't measure people by that sort of thing. But I knew, when the time came to meet her parents, they'd already drawn a picture of me in their minds. You see, I live simply. I wear plain clothes. I still keep my old handbag from the market, the one that's been stitched twice already. So I decided, this time, I won't change a thing. I shall go as I am, simple, poor, and plain. When I walked into their grand house that afternoon, I could feel the air shift. They smiled politely, but their eyes said everything. They looked at my shoes, at my worn-out dress, and I could almost hear the whispers in their heads. Is this the woman our daughter Sip's going to call mother-in-law? But I kept smiling. I spoke softly, I listened more than I talked, and I thanked them for their hospitality. When dinner was served, they offered me the smallest portion. I didn't mind. I'd come to observe, not to impress. The following week, their family came to my home, a small old house with creaking floors and faded curtains. They looked uncomfortable, as if the chairs were too humble for them. But my son's fiancée, she smiled. She helped me serve the food, washed her hands, and even helped me clean up afterward. I watched her, not her parents, not their manners, her. And I thought, this girl's heart is kind, that's all that matters. Months later, after their wedding, my daughter-in-law confessed something to me. She said, "Mama, my parents told me you were too simple, too poor, but I told them, seeing that Sep's the kind of woman I want to learn from." And I cried. Because in that moment, I knew the act of being humble had shown her what kind of person I truly was. If I had gone there trying to impress, I might have fooled them for a moment. But by being myself, I revealed everyone's true nature, theirs and mine. So, my dears, remember this. You don't need to pretend to be more than you are. The right people will see your worth, even when the world doesn't. And sometimes, the best way to test a heart is to show up as your authentic self. Because class isn't set in your clothes or your house, it sits in your character. And that, my loves, is what truly lasts. You know, my dear, life has this gentle but firm way of showing us what truly matters, and often it does so when we least expect it. You see, some people spend their whole lives trying to appear strong, rich, or important, thinking that's how they'll earn respect. But I've learned that the quiet power of humility can do what money never could. It reveals hearts. That's something you can't buy or fake, no matter how polished your manners are, or how big your house might be. When you walk into a room and you carry no armor of pride, no mask of status, people show you who they are. If they only treat you kindly when they think you have something to offer, then their kindness isn't real, it's a transaction. But if they treat you with the same warmth when you come empty-handed, that's when you've met a soul worth knowing. That's the beauty of humility. It doesn't just define your character, it unmasks others. I remember, when I went to meet my daughter-in-law's family, I didn't wear my best clothes. I didn't borrow jewelry from my sister, and I didn't go out of my way to impress. I just went as myself, a simple mother who worked hard, loved her son, and lived within her means. The moment I stepped through that door, I could feel their eyes studying me, not out of curiosity, but judgment. They saw my plain handbag, my worn-out shoes, and I could see their smiles falter for half a second. Oh, they tried to hide it, but a mother knows when someone is measuring her. Now, I could have pretended to be something I wasn't. I could have dressed up and spoken with fancy words to make them think I belonged in their circle. But if I had done that, I would have only seen the mask they wanted me to see. Polite smiles, forced compliments, empty approval. I wanted something real. I wanted to know what kind of people my son was marrying into, and the only way to find that out was to be humble enough to let their pride speak. That day, as they served dinner, I noticed the difference in how the plates were passed around. Their friends got the best cuts, the finest china, and I got the smaller portion, the chipped plate. I smiled, said thank you, and ate with gratitude. You see, I wasn't testing them to catch them doing wrong. I was observing, because humility is powerful like that. When you lower yourself, you create space for others to show you who they really are. Some will reach down to lift you up, others will use that moment to look down on you. But either way, you'll see them clearly. Later, when their family came to my home, they entered with hesitation. My little house wasn't like theirs. No marble floors, no fancy curtains. But my daughter-in-law, bless her heart, didn't care. She sat on my old sofa like it was a throne. She helped me serve, laughed at my jokes, and even washed her hands to help me clean the dishes. That's when I knew she had a heart that wasn't raised by wealth, but by love. She saw me, not my house. She saw respect where others saw lack. You see, dear, humility isn't about making yourself small so others can shine. It's about being unafraid to stand as you are, without the need to prove or pretend. When you walk humbly, the right people will see your light anyway. And those who overlook you because you don't dazzle them, well, they were never meant to see you in the first place. Over the years, I've come to understand that humility isn't weakness. It's quiet strength. It's what gives you peace when others chase attention. It's what allows you to stand tall, even when you're sitting in the smallest room. The world might not clap for the humble, but heaven always notices. When you carry humility, you don't need validation. Your peace becomes your proof. So when people underestimate you, let them. When they whisper that you're too plain or too simple, smile. Let their words fall away like rain on a window. Because when life reveals the truth, they'll remember that the person they once dismissed was the one who had the most grace all along. And remember this, my dear, sometimes pretending to be less than what the world values is how you uncover what's truly valuable: sincerity, respect, and love that isn't blinded by pride. Humility will always show you who stands with you when all that glitters is gone. You know, my dear, life has this way of showing us that what we see isn't always what truly is. People dress up in fine clothes, smile with practiced grace, and speak with fancy words. But behind all that sparkle, you might find a heart that's empty, cold, or proud. And sometimes, the ones who walk quietly, wearing old shoes and humble smiles, carry the kindest souls you'll ever meet. Appearances, my dear, can be the most convincing disguise in this world. When I met my daughter-in-law's family for the first time, I saw a home that looked like something out of a magazine. Tall ceilings, shining floors, gold-framed pictures on every wall. They moved around with that kind of confidence that comes from knowing the world admires you. They greeted me politely, but their eyes told a different story. You know how some smiles never reach the heart? That was one of those days. They smiled because it was expected, not because they were glad to see me. I could feel their eyes studying me, not for who I was, but for what I was wearing. My dress was simple, the same one I wore to church most Sundays. My shoes had walked through years of markets and mornings, and I carried my old handbag, the one my son had bought me long ago when times were hard, but love was plenty. That handbag meant something to me, but to them it probably looked like a relic from another time. Throughout the evening, I noticed how the little details revealed so much. They offered me a seat, but not the most comfortable one. They spoke to me kindly, but their words carried a faint air of superiority, as if they were trying to be patient with someone who didn't quite belong in their world. It's funny how people think wealth gives them the right to decide who's worthy of respect. I said little, only smiled and listened. I wanted to see them, not through their fine clothes or polite words, but through their behavior. Because, my dear, no matter how much perfume a person wears, pride has a smell of its own, sharp, unpleasant, and hard to miss. When dinner was served, they offered dishes I could hardly pronounce. I thanked them and ate quietly, but I saw how the maid hovered behind me, as if worried I might spill or ask for something out of place. I didn't feel angry, no, I felt a kind of sadness, because I knew these people were blind. They could see the gold on their plates, but not the heart sitting before them. They saw a poor woman, not realizing that what looked like simplicity was peace, the kind that money can't buy. Later, when they came to my house, their expressions changed. My home was old, the paint faded in some corners, and the chairs had stories written in their scratches. But it was clean, it was warm, and every corner carried love. Still, they looked uncomfortable. They sat upright, careful not to touch too much, as if my home would stain them somehow. Yet my daughter-in-law, she saw things differently. She touched everything with affection. She laughed easily, helped me serve food, and didn't care that my dishes didn't match. She looked at me with warmth, not pity, but respect. That, my dear, is when I saw the truth. The truth that appearances deceive, that you can live in a grand house and still have a small heart, that you can wear plain clothes and carry the richest kind of dignity. The world teaches people to value what shines, but I've learned that real worth rarely glitters. Many people spend their lives polishing the outside, fixing what others can see, but neglecting the inside, where kindness and humility live. You can't hide a proud heart for long. It always shows itself in how you treat those who can't benefit you. The daughter-in-law's parents had everything the world could offer: wealth, status, elegance, but they lacked the one thing that makes a person truly beautiful: sincerity. And my daughter-in-law, though she came from their world, had something they didn't: the ability to see beyond the surface. She saw that love doesn't wear designer labels, and respect doesn't live in big houses. She saw that I was rich, not in gold or property, but in gratitude and peace. So, my dear, don't be fooled by appearances. People can wear masks made of silk and diamonds, but time and truth will always strip them away. What truly lasts is the goodness within, quiet, unshakable, and real. When you meet people, don't look at what they have, look at how they make others feel, because character, not clothing, is what makes a person shine in the light and in the dark alike. You know, my dear, kindness has a language that doesn't need words. It speaks through small gestures, gentle eyes, and quiet moments when no one's watching. And what I've learned in this long journey of life is that kindness always recognizes its own reflection. No matter how the world dresses it up or tries to hide it, a kind heart will always find another kind heart. That's how I came to know my daughter-in-law's true soul. When I first met her family, I'll be honest, I was worried. I saw the way her parents looked at me, the way they measured my worth through my plain clothes and simple ways. I saw how they whispered to each other, thinking I didn't notice. But my dear, you can't hide judgment. It leaks through every smile that isn't real. I told myself, let them think what they want. Time always reveals truth, and oh, it surely did. When the day came for them to visit my home, I felt a little nervous, but I refused to pretend. My house was small but full of warmth. The walls carried laughter from years gone by, the scent of old books, and the spirit of love that never needed decoration. I prepared a simple meal: rice, vegetables, and a bit of stew, nothing fancy, but cooked with care. I wanted them to see that even in simplicity, there can be grace. When they arrived, her parents looked around, polite but uncomfortable. You could tell they weren't used to sitting on old furniture or smelling food cooked with love instead of luxury. But their daughter, my future daughter-in-law, she was different. The moment she stepped inside, her face lit up. She didn't see the cracks in the wall or the worn-out table. She saw a home. She saw warmth. While her parents waited for me to serve, she followed me straight to the kitchen. "Let me help you, Mama," she said. Oh, my heart softened right there. I watched her roll up her sleeves and start setting plates, her delicate hands moving with care. No hesitation, no pride. She didn't act like she was doing me a favor. She acted like family. We served the food together. Her parents barely touched their meal, but she ate heartily and thanked me for every bite. She told me it tasted like comfort, like love. I smiled and told her, that's the only ingredient I never run out of. She laughed, and in that moment I saw what kind of woman she truly was, one who valued hearts over houses, kindness over class. After the meal, she insisted on helping me wash the dishes. I told her she didn't have to, that she was a guest, but she just smiled and said, "Mama, family doesn't sit while others work." I can't explain how deeply those words touched me. It wasn't about the dishes, it was about what they meant. She saw me as a person, not a position. She didn't treat me like her husband's mother because she had to. She treated me with respect because she wanted to. That evening after they left, I sat for a while and thought about what I had witnessed. You see, dear, when kindness meets kindness, it's like a spark finding another. It grows into light. Her heart recognized mine because both were built on the same foundation, love that asks for nothing in return. Later, when she married my son, she told me, "Mama, I saw how they treated you, and I saw how you never changed your smile. That's when I knew I wanted to learn from you." And I cried, not because I was sad, but because I realized something beautiful. Even when others fail to see your worth, someone will, and that someone will be drawn to the light inside you like a moth to a flame. So many people chase wealth, thinking it will attract love or respect. But kindness, my dear, is the true magnet. It reaches beyond looks, beyond status, beyond all the things that fade with time. When you lead with kindness, you'll find the ones who understand it, those who see value not in what you own, but in who you are. And that's what this heart of mine believes. Kindness may be quiet, but it never goes unnoticed. It moves from one heart to another, carrying warmth wherever it goes. The world may overlook you for your simplicity, but the right people, the good ones, will recognize your soul like an old friend, because kindness, when it meets its reflection, always knows its own. My dear, I've lived long enough to know that pretending never brings peace. You can dress yourself in fine clothes, speak with fancy words, and walk with borrowed pride, but at the end of the day, the truth always comes knocking, and when it does, no disguise can save you. Authenticity, my dear, is the quiet strength that stands tall even when the world expects you to bend. It's the courage to be yourself, even when others think you should be someone else. When I went to meet my daughter-in-law's family for the first time, I had a choice. I could have dressed up, borrowed jewelry, and tried to act the part they expected of me, but deep down I knew that would be a lie. I wasn't raised to impress. I was raised to be real. So I went as myself, a simple mother who had worked hard, prayed harder, and carried love instead of luxury. From the moment I stepped into their home, I could feel the air of formality. Everything sparkled. The floors, the chandeliers, even their smiles. But beneath all that shine, I sensed something hollow. They greeted me politely, but their eyes were distant, as if they were talking to a shadow instead of a person. Still, I stayed true to myself. I spoke gently, thanked them sincerely, and didn't try to fill the silence with pretense. At the dinner table, I noticed how everyone tried to out-talk each other, each story louder than the last. They laughed, but it wasn't the kind of laughter that comes from joy. It was the kind that comes from trying to impress. I stayed quiet, listening, nodding, and smiling when it felt right. You see, my dear, authenticity doesn't shout. It listens. It doesn't rush to prove. It simply exists, comfortable in its own skin. When I returned home that night, I didn't feel ashamed that I didn't fit their world. Instead, I felt peace, because I knew I hadn't betrayed myself to win approval that wouldn't have been real anyway. That's something many people forget. When you hide who you are to please others, you might gain their attention for a moment, but you lose your own reflection for much longer. A few weeks later, their family came to visit me. My home wasn't grand, the paint on the walls had faded, and the furniture carried the weight of years, but it was clean, warm, and filled with memories. I didn't try to make it something it wasn't. I cooked my own food, the kind that filled both the stomach and the soul. When they arrived, I welcomed them with the same humility I had shown before. Her parents looked around with forced smiles, but my daughter-in-law's eyes softened. She didn't see what was missing. She saw what was real. She saw love, honesty, and warmth. She helped me serve the food, laughed easily, and never made me feel small. Her heart recognized mine, and that's how I knew she was the right one for my son. Later, she told me something I'll never forget. She said, "Mama, when I first met you, I saw peace in your eyes. You didn't try to impress anyone, you were just you, and that's what made me feel safe." Those words, my dear, reminded me why authenticity is so powerful. You see, when you're real, you invite others to be real too. You give them permission to drop their masks and breathe freely. Life will always test your truth. There will be moments when pretending seems easier, when showing your real self feels risky, but pretending is like building a house on sand. It might look strong for a while, but the first wave of truth will wash it away. When you choose to stand in your truth, storms may come, but they can't shake what's rooted deep. And the most beautiful part? When you're authentic, the right people will stay. The ones who only loved your mask will drift away, but the ones who love your heart will hold it gently. The love and respect you build from honesty last far longer than the approval won from pretending. So, my dear, don't ever trade your truth for temporary comfort. The world might not always reward you for being real, but your peace will. Stay soft, stay true, and let your heart be exactly what it was made to be, genuine, steady, and full of light. Because in the end, authenticity doesn't just reveal who you are, it reveals who's worthy of standing beside you when the masks fall away.